Glaciation. Glaciation is a process by which moving ice erodes, transports, and deposits materials on the Earth's surface. Glacier. Glacier is a mass of ice which may be moving or has moved over land when enough ice has accumulated. Ice sheet. When a continuous mass of ice covers a large land surface, it is called ice sheet. Ice caps. A permanent mass of ice covering plateaus and high-latitude islands but smaller than ice sheet. Icebergs. When an ice sheet moves into the sea, a large mass of ice breaks off from the main ice sheet and floats. The floating mass of ice is called an iceberg. Processes of glaciation and the resultant features in the highland areas. There are three main glacial processes. These are erosion, transportation, and deposition. Glacial erosion. Glacial erosion involves two main processes, namely abrasion and plaking. Abrasion. Abrasion is also known as the grinding process. Glacial abrasion is caused by the rock debris embedded in the glacier. The debris at the base and on the sides of the ice acts as a tool for scratching and polishing the rock surfaces over which the glacier moves. Plaking. This is also referred to as sapping or quarrying. When parts of underlying and side rocks get frozen into the ice, they are pulled away as the glacier moves. Resultant features in the highlands areas. In the highlands, erosional features are dominant, although a few glacial deposits may also be found. The main erosional features in the highlands are sacs, arêtes, pyramidal peaks, glacial troughs, fjords, and hanging valleys. Let us now explain each of the above features. Sacs. A sac is also known as a corrie. It is a semicircular steep-sided basin cut into the side of a mountain. It is formed when snow accumulates in a shallow pre-existing depression on the mountainside. The ice exerts pressure on the cracks and the hollow beneath. As the ice moves, it plucks the rocks in the hollow, thus allowing more ice to collect in it. Plucking also contributes to steepening of the sides and the back wall. A deep crevice known as backscrand may form between the back wall and the glacier in the depression. The glacial depression is further enlarged by nivation and frost shattering. Arête or fishbone. An arête is a narrow, knife-edged, steep and jagged ridge separating two sacs. It is formed when two sacs cut backwards on adjacent sides of a mountain in a process known as headward recession. Pyramidal peaks. A pyramidal peak is also referred to as a horn. It is a sharp and steep-sided peak surrounded by sacs. It is formed when sacs develop on all sides of a mountain. Frost action causes blocks of rocks to be broken down, resulting in the back walls of the sac becoming steepened. Examples of sac can be found on Mount Kenya and Ruwenzori mountains. Glacial troughs. A glacial trough is a wide, flat-bottomed valley which has steep sides. It has a U-shaped cross profile. As the glacier moves down the valley, it is fed by several tributary glaciers. Its erosive power increases, causing it to deepen and widen its valley. The glacial troughs originate from the modification by ice of the pre-existing river valleys. As the ice moves in the valley, the floor is flattened and any spur on the side is truncated. Fjords. A fjord is also known as ford. This is a long, narrow arm of the sea with parallel steep-sided walls. It is a submerged glaciated valley with many features with characteristics of glacial trough. Fjords were formed by glaciers greatly over-deepening former coastal valleys. Hanging valleys. These are high-lying tributary valleys which end abruptly above the floor of a glacial trough. Hanging valleys are formed as a result of different rates of erosion between the main glacier and the tributary glacier. After the glaciers disappear, these tributaries remain as hanging valleys, which is marked by the presence of waterfalls as they enter into glacial trough. Features in glaciated lowlands. We have already discussed glaciated features in the highlands. Now, we shall discuss glaciated features in the lowlands. In glaciated lowlands, the features formed are mainly depositional. There are very few erosion features on the lowlands. Both valley glaciers and continental ice sheets pass through large areas, eroding and transporting materials of all types which are eventually deposited in the lowlands. Roche Montoni. A roche montoni is a rock outcrop that has been eroded by two glacial processes, namely abrasion and plucking. Crag and tail. A crag is a projection of resistant rock which projects a mass of softer rock on the downstream side of the glacier. The softer rock is known as the tail. The crag usually lies on the path of the oncoming ice. The ice moves over and around the crag, but it is only able to slightly erode it. The material that was being carried by the glacier is deposited downstream side. Such deposits, together with the weaker or softer rocks being protected, form an elongated tail, and hence the term crag and tail. An example of a crag and tail is noticeable on Mount Kilimanjaro. Depositional features. When an ice sheet melts, it drops its loads. The meltwater flows over the deposited material, carrying away some of it. This is later deposited downstream. The main glacial depositional features on glaciated lowland are erratics, boulder trains, till, drumlins, eskers, kames, moraines, and outwash plain. Erratics. An erratic is a large boulder of rock which has been transported by a glacier so that it rests on a country rock which is different from it. These rocks are deposited on the lowlands when the ice melts. The deposits have no relationship with the rock materials found in the area of deposition. Boulder train. This is a series of erratics that are obtained from the same bedrock and which are deposited with the apex pointing to the origin of the material. They can also occur in a linear form. Till. Till is also known as boulder clay. These are unsorted sediments deposited directly below glacier. A till is made of unstratified mass of heterogeneous rocks, clay, and sand. Drumlins. A drumlin is a long egg-shaped hill which is deposited and shaped under an ice sheet or very broad glacier. Drumlins occur on till plains in groups in the same line of ice movement. Eskers. An esker is a long, narrow, steep-sided winding ridge of sand and gravel. An esker may be 20 to 30 meters high and over 160 kilometers long. Kame. A kame is an isolated, low, steep-sided hill made of sand and gravel which has been deposited in layers by glacial water. Kames vary in size and shape. They may occur single or in groups. Moraines. The material that is carried by a glacier is called moraine. It consists of rock fragments of all size which have been produced by both plucking and abrasion processes. Types of moraines. Lateral moraines. Lateral moraines are long irregular bands of load debris on the surface of glacial margins. The debris is composed of blocks of rocks that are broken and fallen off from valley walls on glacier margins. Medial moraines. When two valley glaciers converge, their lateral moraines merge into a mid-surface moraine. The resultant moraine is hence referred to as medial. Terminal moraines. Terminal moraine consists of the materials that are deposited at the point where the glacier melts. This is the farthest point where glacier reaches. Deposition of this material only happens when glacier is stationary. Ground moraines. It is also known as englacial moraine. Ground moraine is the debris within the glacier. As the medial moraines work their way into the ice or fall into a glacial crevices, they are transported as enclosed load debris, hence described as englacial. Outwash plain. Once the terminal moraines has been deposited, the meltwater spreads fine materials in great fans. The fine materials from the terminal moraines are known as fluvioglacial outwash. Fluvioglaciers will collect together to form outwash plains. The plains have depressions known as kettles.